It's Monday night. It's 8 o'clock. You already know what it is. Let's go. What's up? What's up? What's up? How y'all doing? It is Monday, March 22nd, 2021. 2021. And we're here with episode 14 of Den City tonight. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you enjoyed these last two amazingly warm for what we've been going through days. I hope you enjoyed those days, got out and got some sun, hung out with your peeps, family, friends, girlfriend, boyfriend. Hope you did all that. And I hope you enjoyed the days, because I don't know how long, the way this weather goes is going to turn back to snow or sleet or rain at some point until we get consistent spring days. But once again, welcome to episode 14. These are the last two shows in our music month. Last week, if y'all was with us last week, man, we had a marathon episode. 3 hours. 3 hours with my boys, Miles and John from our original group, Business and Pleasure, and their group that they continue to go on with, Diverse. It was crazy, man. We spoke about everything that we could think of, and we didn't get a chance to finish all the history that happened between, what we went through as Business and Pleasure and what they continue to go through as Diverse. This music industry is crazy. There's so many stories, but we did decide one thing after we got a call from Shagan, who was the fourth member of the group that we haven't seen for years. I think Miles said he hadn't seen for almost 20 years. I hadn't even heard his voice. But we decided that the four of us were going to get together here on Den City tonight. We haven't set the date yet, but we're going to get together and we're going to rehash some of the things we talked about and finish off on some of the things that we missed. It's going to be crazy. We haven't all been together in the same room since 1993, I want to say. 1993 was about the same time that all four of us were together in the same room, so it should be pretty cool. I do want to apologize. Last week, as great and as much fun as I had on the show, we had some serious technical difficulties. I didn't realize that the Rodecaster Pro that I use for my mic setup, it wasn't logged into, so the computer was running off the webcam mic and nothing else. So when Shagan called in, you couldn't hear him. When we played a song that was one of the songs we walked on stage to our old show, you couldn't hear that song. We played Chez La Femme, you couldn't hear that. And when we played one of the tracks from my son, one of his Spotify tracks, you couldn't hear that. So there was a bunch of times last week that you just couldn't hear anything. And so we were talking to It sounded like we were talking to ourselves. I apologize for that. But it was a great show nonetheless. Make sure all you techies out there, you know that before you start anything, you make sure all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted and you got your technical stuff correct. I think the problem was that it was the 13th and it was episode 13. It wasn't the 13th. It was episode 13. And maybe we just had some bad luck. I don't know if you believe in that stuff, but sometimes it happens. What I do find interesting about that whole 3-hour marathon that we had was that, sometimes revisionist history, they call it, you think that you see something a certain way, and you might see something as very magical, or you might see something as horrible, but the same person who was with you going through that whole thing sees it completely different. maybe not completely different, but somewhat different than you, and in some cases, completely different. Take the name of our old group, Business and Pleasure. Miles made it very clear that he was like, that name was whack, it was hard, it was trash. And, I always thought it was kind of clever. I guess, it was one of the reasons that um, maybe we were never able to get an image together because we just couldn't decide on what that was supposed to be. But it's interesting, like I said, on how you go through experiences with people and you leave that experience thinking one thing, and you realize much later on as your years pass and maybe you and that person get back together again and you're talking about that time, and they see it totally different than you, and you're like, wow, this person really didn't enjoy that at all. And I'm over here thinking nostalgically like it was a great moment in time. So it's hard sometimes to understand other people's perspective, but you gotta know that you don't always see things the way other people see them, and you have to accept that. And you don't have to necessarily change your view about the experience, but you do have to respect the other person's view and maybe kind of take a moment and see why they are feeling the way they're feeling. So, as I was saying, this is the last 2 weeks of our music month, March Music Month. We also did a tribute to the fact that this is Women's Month. So we talked about that last week. And next week, my last guest on the last episode in March is going to be G Mims. G Mims is a hip hop artist. He's got some ties to some legendary hip hop people. We won't really get into that. I'll let him get into that if he wants to. Not everybody wants everybody to know all their information. And this guy has been doing his thing. He was one of the artists that worked with Eddie and myself in Paris when we were doing the project for 2021. That was the name of the album. It's funny, the name of the album is 2021. Maybe one day I'll play some cuts from it. Shout out to my man Paris. And he was on a few of the tracks, and he was on I think one the main video that came out, he was on that. So shout out to G Mims. I can't wait to talk to you next week, my brother. Should be fun. Should be a good time. Today we have an artist that we're going to talk about that's also an independent artist, hip hop. Someone that I met several years ago, who I call, I don't know, I guess I call a keeper of hip hop. I would say like G's kind of the same thing. He's a keeper of hip hop. You got those guys that are true to the game and true to the art and the craft and really believe in the wordsmanship and the meaning behind what they're saying. Telling a story, being that storyteller, being that hip hop artist that can stand the test of time. And that's what I call G, and that's what I call a gentleman that's coming to grace my show today, who's called the Marksman. And we'll be talking to him in a few minutes, and that should be kind of cool. I wanted to ask those that have the time to watch or to take the time to watch the shows and the replays and stuff like that, or the ones even that come on, during the live sessions. What type of topics you'd be interested in checking out on this show? What are some of the things that you'd like to see covered? What are some of the topics that interest you? I think it's an interesting idea to find out what people are thinking. What is their idea of a podcast that would interest them. I'm going to be getting away from doing the guests the next couple of weeks. I think going into March or going into April, I may have one or two guests. I probably won't have a guest each week, but I'm going to just get into talking a few more topics, specific topics for the show that we can kind of, toss around our ideas and our thoughts and maybe get some calls in and, see where everyone has their thoughts on these particular topics. What I was talking about today could be a topic in itself, and as people see things quite differently, even though they experience the same thing. They talk about that when you have something as simple as a police investigation and you have witnesses, and those witnesses are asked by, the attorneys or the DAs, what did you see? And one person will say, it was a guy with a white shirt, black pants, and gray sneakers, and he went up the stairs and out the door. And they'll ask the same person that was standing next to the person that they just spoke to, and they'll say he was black sneakers, white pants, and a gray shirt, and he walked around the corner. And that's why they say sometimes you can't trust witnesses, witness testimony, because people see things differently. People envision things differently, and they swear they remember things, like what they call the Mandela effect, where everybody is, that's a little bit different. That's like everybody is remembering the same thing a certain way, and it's not that way. Everybody remembers something to be yellow. It's yellow, and then it turns out that that object was actually, all this time it was orange. But for some reason, everyone has thought it was been the same color. Everyone has thought, that same situation, and that's kind of opposite of the fact that some people see things and they see things differently. So that's something that I thought of when I was talking with Miles and John, how each of us kind of saw a different aspect of what we did. Um, each of us saw the music industry a little bit different. Each of us saw our group a little bit different, the dynamic of the group, what was most important, what really tripped us up, who was there during different times. Um, the fact that sometimes we couldn't remember a specific person being in the group at that particular time, even though they were there. So there was a lot of little things that were kind of really interesting in the fact that, you know, one that I found amazing is that Miles can remember things verbatim from 26 years ago, 27 years ago, because I've been married 26 years, and we were a group prior to that, and he remembers things, and it's like, wow, it's crazy that you can really tap into something, but it also depends on how something affects your life. It also depends on how important it is to your development and to your passions. So I guess him being such a passionate person about music, those years that we were together, had a big impact. So he's able to remember that, and some of us were just like, I don't remember that at all. So it was real funny, man. It was real great seeing them. I just wish that I'd have picked up on that technical difficulty before. Um, we got through most of the show. In fact, we got through all the show. I didn't realize it too. We went back. I went back and started to, put it together for editing, and I was like, oh man, we missed all this stuff, and it was kind of disappointing. But what we did get on film was still great. It was still pretty fantastic. So I'm happy for that. I want to give a shout out in the sports world to my Knicks. I mean, they are having a rough time, but they are competing. I mean, they are competing, and they're getting some really, really crappy ref calls against them. Like last night's game against Philadelphia, we tied the game at the buzzer. Randall ties it with a 3-pointer. We up by 1 point with like 5 seconds left or something like that. We get the offensive rebound, and the refs call a loose ball foul on Randall, which was ridiculous. Same thing with the Nets. Against the Nets, we were right there in the game till the end, and they call a travel on Randall because they don't see the fact that Kyrie hit the ball as Randall was going up for the shot. It's sad, but those are the kinds of things that happen when they're growing pains, where teams are starting to play better and teams are starting to actually, get a momentum, but they don't get the calls yet because, the refs or I guess or however it's set up is not really looking for them to be competitive, and the calls are usually going against them anyway. And that kind of happens until you earn some respect in the league and you start getting the calls, or not getting called when you probably should have, or getting the calls that you're supposed to get. It'll take time, but they've been playing their butts off. And shout out to the Knicks, and shout out to Tom Thibodeau and all those guys over there for really trying to change the culture and giving us Knicks fans, something to be happy for finally, after having such a long time of, just nothing to look forward to. So That's pretty cool. And my Yankees are 13-6 in spring training. Garrett Cole was looking crazy yesterday, 8 strikeouts. We're coming together pretty well. We'll see what happens in the regular season, of course. Hopefully, as long as the injuries, bugs don't bite us, we should be good. So I am hoping that in the next few minutes, we will be talking with our guest for tonight, which is the Marksman again. I said one of the keepers of hip hop. Should be getting on here any second now. And when he does, we're going to talk to him about just his influences and what he felt was his driving force behind him getting involved in this industry and getting involved with hip hop and what it means to him. Um, I hope that everybody who has had the opportunity to come join me for these episodes has appreciated, our time and what we're trying to do. It's been fun, but I tell you, it's been work too because you know these podcasts. You sit down and you prepare and you get information on people, and you got to do your research so that people can understand that you're serious about knowing about them. You don't want to just bring a guest on and just, hey, so how you doing? And it doesn't work like that. You want to have information, and I guess I have a lot of respect now. I always had respect for, but I have extreme respect for people that have done this work countless times, that have been able to really make their career out of talking with people and getting the best out of them. It's not an easy job to do. But ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very pleased to announce my next guest. The brother I've known for a few years now, a very talented man, but this is going to be something interesting. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Check this out.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm about to bring him on right now.
I'd like to welcome you to the UFMX experience. I am your host, the Marksman.
Yes, sir.
I can't forget the UF
Big Mark.
music group all night.
Yes, sir. I had to bring you on to this, brother.
You can hear me, right?
I can hear
all
you.
Night.
I got you.
Okay, we're going to take them there. Yeah. All right. All right.
I love that.
All right. All right. Good to see you, Frank. All night.
I love that, brother. I love that. That's amazing. That is from, if I'm not mistaken, that's from the live album, The Rehearsal, right?
Yes, sir. Myself and the UF Music Group collaborated on it was a one-time shot. We had one shot to do it, no rehearsal. We just had to go into the booth of this school, this audio engineering school, and they allowed us to use their facilities. It was a dope experience.
That is great, man. I mean, I'm a fan of yours. I mean, I think we met from a mutual friend, Victoria, I think, introduced us, and that was back I forgot the parties that they used to have.
Yeah, it was the party or the Freedom Party. It was one of those major dance parties.
Yeah. It definitely was, and ever since then, man, you've been a person that very inspirational. You always giving your all. I just thought it was important, this month that I'm doing music reviews, and I'm talking about people that should be more known than they are. You are definitely one of those. But let's take it back to the beginning. Okay. And I know from what my understanding is, we take it back to the Revisionist Cafe.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Oh my goodness, Frank. I mean, the interesting part about you even asking me that is that this year, and I'm turning 40 in a few days.
All right.
It marks 20 years since I first walked into the New Rican Poets Cafe. And it was at a time right as Russell Simmons was taking it mainstream with HBO.
Right.
Timing to me was perfect because it was where it was getting that attention. So it was hype, but it was before it kind of launched and got very, it was on TV every week,
Right.
definitely changed a lot of how, people consume the art form. So I mean, just being there with all these insanely legendary writers and performers really created a monster, and I just never stopped from a creative perspective. I just kind of evolved into different levels and then got into hip hop, started rhyming, and
Yeah, I know. In that first year, though, you were on. If you were featured season 1 BET Lyric Cafe.
Yeah,
What was
that was
that?
experience, man. I mean, it was my first major gig. I remember I was competing against um like people that are in the poetry scene, like the
Right,
normal that I would meet later, but
right.
the ones auditioning, and I kind of came out of nowhere, and no ego, but I kind of did my thing and got my position. So it kind of gave me a nice little push. I thought that this show would be larger than it was.
Right.
It is what it is. I'm definitely grateful for that experience. I mean, getting me early really put that battery in my back to continue.
Absolutely, man. What do you think was the catalyst or the change that took you over into more of the hip hop? Or was it just like a natural progression?
Uh, it was very natural. Hip hop I was always a hip hop head. I was just a hip hop head who could spit. I found that poetry helped me structure my thoughts better.
Okay.
But hip hop was always inside. I started a group with my homies at Hunter College, uh,
Okay.
called the Cataclysm in like 2001, 2002, and we performed together. And that's really how. I mean, I told them I'm calling myself the Marksman for the first time. We kind of really built this little team where we were able to create music, and dealing with them, I became the poet who rhymes sometimes.
Right.
You kind of get in the door. I was able to be confident when I wanted to and spit, but then when I wanted to do my thing, I was able to grow with these gentlemen. So that really started it.
That's great, man. So fast forward 2010, you
Yeah.
got your the next mixtape tribute to J Dilla.
Yeah.
What was that experience about? How did that come about?
Yeah, and I'm trying to think when I met you around the time where I had already started making music and stuff and throwing parties, but
Mhm.
the industry, I entered that in 2007, and that I kind of put poetry aside for a bit,
Mhm.
just side of my life. Really, I kind of just wanted to do something else for a second, and that led me to want to create a project. So 2010 was my first hip hop project where I was able to, remember me the poet, and now that
Right.
kind of do my first hip hop project. So Jay Dilla is and always is the man. I'm doing a tribute to him very soon. So he's somebody who I could just go into his beats and do a full mixtape and really give my best. So it was a great way to start.
Fantastic, man. Yeah, I mean, I come across, and I'm talking about when you did in 2011, I believe you did the next album and
Right.
your performance. I went to go see your performance at SOBs, which was
Yeah,
crazy.
Hank.
Yes.
Much love, man. That means a lot. I mean, that was 2011.
Yeah, that show was. I mean, the whole experience, the crowd, everybody, just the energy there, the energy on stage. It was incredible, man. And that was like for me, that was like, oh, this dude's got it. And I appreciate the artistry. I mean, because let's face it, that's not that it's lost, but it's lacking. The artistry is somewhat lacking. I try not to be the old guy that hates on the new artists and stuff like that, but I miss the artistry and just the cleverness and the person that takes their time to try to actually write, and bring forth a message. How do you feel about the industry right now?
um, and it's funny because we are the older generation that we've seen hip hop, birthed.
Right.
I'm about the age of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? I definitely feel entitled to speak about that juncture of time. I don't think there's anything wrong with us using our experience to, dissect the current state of hip hop, because the digitalization of hip hop really changed who the artists were. It changed, without labels, we have less quality control. So there are pros and cons to that. The indie scene is definitely a great scene. So I mean, to answer your question, I enjoy the industry in that I know that I have to look harder for the music I want. You
Okay, that's
I,
a
I always have issues with mainstream hip hop. There'll always be issues because there's always that lack of balance that we're always trying to attain. So I'll always be that guy. I'll always have unpopular opinions about certain things that I feel we can do better than. Um,
right.
I
But
com-
who's to say they're unpopular? Though? They might. It's funny because when we say that I have an unpopular opinion, but I always find that sometimes the popular opinion is not really what the masses think. It's just that they're speaking the loudest.
True.
You know?
1,000%. And this is a day and age where people follow to follow. So I think it takes audacity and a risk that people will disagree with you. you know,
Right.
things to account to speak the truth these days. So that's what we're gonna do.
That's what I'm trying to do here. This is my 14th episode, and if you see the first couple episodes, it's funny because it's just me and my phone, and I'm trying to, I'm still trying to find the truth in different aspects. But I think that getting to speak to people, um, who I have seen, who I admire, who I think have something to offer, and bringing them on is my truth. And it's important. I'll continue to do that. You have, from what I understand, words. Words is a curriculum that you have.
Yeah.
What's that about? Because we were trying to do something before my partner passed. My partner Eddie passed away in 2018. And this is coming up his third anniversary, coming up April 6th. We were trying to do a non-for-profit program to show kids about, the origins of hip hop, the origins of R&B. But I see this word things is to help them improve their communication skills. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I was blessed to in 2015 and 16. I was blessed to have gotten I was working freelance as a client relationship manager with NY Fencing, New York Fencing. So that was a fencing company that hired me to bring their program into different schools.
Okay.
And doing that, I learned the education system and I learned the program system. And I was encouraged to, hey, you're an artist, you're a teaching artist. Why don't you do? And it became almost a joke. And then I thought
Right.
about it more and started to develop a curriculum.
Okay.
I researched, and I created a 15-week program called Words.
That's
that
fantastic.
that would, from soup to nuts, from concept to finished product. It's a writing exercise, it's a writing workshop, it's a self-expression workshop, and it's also a delivery workshop. So it's all of those into one. I was able to kind of really have fun. I mean, I did it from second grade all the way to high school. Like it was literally
That's cool.
it rain. If you could read and write,
Right.
I worked with incarcerated youth for a while, and that was another experience. Hearing the things that they would say in their poetry, like it was something that was very me. I haven't done it since 2018 when I got another position. But yeah, it's something that I do miss, and I do appreciate being able to add educator to to the things I've been doing.
That's fantastic. I read that. That's the one thing I didn't know about that. I followed you for other things, and I'm looking that up, and I'm like, oh man, he has a curriculum too. That's pretty cool. I think it's so important. When we worked with our music, we worked with a lot of 15-year-olds,
Mhm.
young kids that were just kind of searching for some type of purpose. And although none of them went on to do anything major in the music industry, I don't think that's the purpose necessarily that we served for them. I
Right.
think we helped them to learn work ethic, and we helped them to learn how to dedicate themselves to a project and to see something through. And a lot of them now, I speak to them still to this day. They're like, they have children and stuff like that, and they're like, we learned so much from you guys. How to get things done, how to see something and have a passion for something. So I think what you're doing with them, what you have done, it's an amazing thing.
Like
Um, I wanted to, I want to talk. I like to talk about people's. Well, first I want to talk about your inspirations and who you looked toward as someone, not that you necessarily wanted to be like, but that helped inspire you to be the artist that you became?
I mean, a lot, man. I mean, I was raised in church. I was raised among preachers. So, it's funny. There was a young lady that she did like sermons when I was a kid. She did these recitations that was spoken word, but nobody called it spoken word. And I remember just kind of realizing later I was inspired by a lot of just the gospel and somebody asked if I'd bring back the word program. That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, call me, you hire me, I'll definitely do it. Reach out. But yeah, started from church to hip hop, just listening to hip hop when I wasn't supposed to as a kid.
Right.
Rhymes was my first favorite rapper. Until Biggie came along and just changed my world from a
Right.
perspective. So I'm somebody who was raised very conservative, but was exposed to the art form, fell in love with the art form. So I have many different inspirations, that are musical. There are people in my life. I'm glad to have solid figures, solid Black people in my life that I was always able to look up to. Church definitely is a great place for role models. So I'm definitely proud of my upbringing. But as far as inspiration, we're talking about, late 80s, early 90s. Everybody who was hitting inspired me for some, in some way to be able to one day want to do this myself.
Right. Um, Everybody, I know for me as a writer, R&B, I've dabbled in hip hop. I would never consider myself a hip hop artist, but I've dabbled, and that's what I grew up on. But as an R&B writer and a songwriter, there are different stages in your life that influence what it is that you're writing about.
Hmm?
Where do you think what was your writing trying to say maybe 10 years ago as opposed to what it would say now?
That's a good question. Now I'll start with now. Now, interesting place. I have a rhyme where I'm saying it's better late than never. Because pretty much, I have rhymes that I'm now learning how to linguistically
Mhm.
execute. I
Okay.
was always writing beyond my vocal skill. Where I
Okay.
write something, and then when it comes down to saying it and
Right.
execute, I'm frustrated because
Right.
I wasn't able to orate it the way I wrote it.
Right. And the way you hear it in your mind. Right.
My pen game has been way far advanced than my oral game, my tongue game. So it's very interesting that now I'm the artist who now has learned how to scale back, maybe take out a few words here and there so that you're clearer. So I'm a lot more dangerous of an artist right now because I'm able to really almost punch you in the face with each bar
Right. Right.
I couldn't do before. So 10 years ago, I was trying to prove that what I'm writing is the illest thing you've ever heard.
Okay. All right.
And I didn't care as much as, me dumbing it down, not dumbing it, me making it digestible wasn't really,
Right.
it was really about, nah, son, that extra syllable, that extra and this and that, I'm putting it all in there. And I'm putting the most complicated word patterns to let you know what I got. And I realized later that's not the way to go because you're talking to people. So you
Right. Right.
be creative to be yourself and still give something to the people. And that's the artist I am now.
That's interesting that you say that because I would love to have you talk with my son because my son's doing hip hop and I made him get into this, not debate, but yeah, it's a debate. And I'll be like, there's too many words there. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, just, you don't have to change the concept, but it's like you gotta let it breathe a little bit. Just let it breathe a little bit. Take that one word out because it seems like you're rushing over it. And it's interesting that you said that because it takes time for you to realize that, I would do the same thing in writing. I would try to write these complicated lyrics that just would, you know, over explain the simple, I love you statement and making it this vast, trying to be cute about it. And then it doesn't come across the way you thought it would. But that's a great observation. What I want to do right now is I like to ask people if they can remember what it was that they were thinking about, during the time that they maybe made a specific track. So I won't play something for you.
Oh wow, I like it.
And you let me know what was going on with this.
I'm with it. I'm with it.
Hello. I think it's working. I have a message for you. If there are any survivors, this is for you. Can you hear me?
Kids kill kids, we idolize weapons. Some steal money, the rest face recession. All my single ladies raising families, so we grow with fewer roots, like when you plant a tree. Sisters with voices wanna scream, but they're too weak in the knees, like SWV. Taxes and fees on everything we need, so everyone we love ain't anyone we see. Shout lunacy to lunar, full moon is closer. I must be coming sooner than I thought. Booyah! To the jazz crooner in the room, stupid, turn the tune up, ask, don't assume. Talk straight through ya, advance steady. My crew, we close deals and dance in fancy rooms. I don't see how we're ever gonna stop, heavier than Big Ethel in a plethora of spots.
That's fun.
Yeah, man.
You asked inspiration behind that?
Yeah.
That like literally the intro, I kind of wanted to convey this this idea of kind of just finding someone, finding someone in this wilderness of chaos, and kind of wanting to, this is our last ditch effort to kind of make this happen. I kind of felt like, sometimes as the marksman, I feel like this last soldier. I'm kind of this last soldier of this forgotten war that I always kind of put that pressure on myself as somebody who's just this lone soldier. So that's where that freestyle came from. That really inspired that.
That's cool. That's cool. I got a couple more, right?
Yeah,
I got a couple more. This actually is one of my favorite tracks of yours.
Oh my God.
Yes, 2013. They said Tupac was a poet. Interesting. The Marksman. Yo, hey love, L-O-V-E. If you're pretty, please tell me, can I talk freely? I've been really trying to find myself in denial about things that I've denied myself, and I feel pride overrides my self-doubt, but sometimes I've denied my help. How? I'm a stone in a tomb full of people I put there, alone in a room. Like you care, I'm too old to assume, so boom, let me throw this poem in your womb. A well-groomed groom who has wiped his tomb, too young to settle down, and so his life is doomed or blessed with a cursive verse that bursts from the heart shock, so it hurts him first. Pay the price to be this precise, hope to survive all this sacrifice. I do this for the love. Trust me.
And that's one of my favorites.
That's one of your favorites?
Yeah, I mean that's on. You played the rehearsal. We did a version.
Right.
When I had the band, we rocked that song.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man. You was one of the first. You was one of the, aside from maybe like the Grammys, but one of the first dudes that I seen really rock with a live band. And killed it.
That's coming back. We're gonna bring that back this year, hopefully.
Got to, man. Got to, because there's nothing. I mean, I know for singing with a live band, the nights that I would go to the Village Underground and perform with the live band, there's nothing like that feeling of having that vibe. So I can imagine.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. My dream is a DJ and a band, and we can go around the world. That's one day I'm gonna build up to that.
So what was the? You're saying that was one of your favorites. What was your mindset then? What were you?
Well, to be real, I'll start it by saying that Tupac was never my favorite artist.
Okay.
He made the mistake of having beef with Biggie. You know what I'm saying? So growing up, Tupac, not that dude.
I hear you.
Always say that. But of course, I've grown to respect him as I get older and become a man.
Right.
You realize you relate to another man and
right.
their work. So "Do for Love" is probably my favorite Tupac song. The beat is just something I I can always hear that beat. It's just so simple, but it's so soothing, and there's something about the way the kick hits, you know, on that fourth bar, that, you know, that it just,
Yes.
there's just such a magical thing that I mean, it to do for love. You know, I'm somebody you know me long enough to know I'm powered by my passion.
Yes, you are definitely.
I can't stop doing that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's caused other issues in my life because I'm just powered and just led by my heart. So it just seemed the perfect song to remake, and that's become one of my major songs.
Yeah, is that I know that sticks out of my head. There's a couple of others, but that one always sticks out of my head. Yeah, it's just I like finding out what people's mindset were when they wrote certain things. I mean, it's something you can be in the most downtrodden time of your life and write the most inspirational song, or be in a great place, but just write something that's totally just like, oh my God, that's depressing. But you know, so it always depends on you know what your flow you're feeling at the moment. So I think it's important to. I mean, you don't always need to know where somebody's head is, but I think in this setting, I like to give you the opportunity to kind of just say where you were feeling and what you were thinking about during those songs. I'm gonna do one more.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna ask you some stuff about what's going on now.
Cool.
All right. And let's try this.
This song is for anybody who's powered by their passion. Sheena Murray. It's not always beautiful. Yes. But it's a beautiful struggle. The next. Yeah. So beautiful. You're so beautiful. Check me out. You're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. Nothing like it on this little blue orb. We shine like spring in New York. Such a beautiful truth. The way things look, I may have to introduce. You change my mood, honestly, be my muse. If you were me, best believe you would too break the rules. Those meant to be broken, like backs, hearts, records, silence, spirits of blacks. Plus, it's just lyrics, relax. Look for me like the blogs, you be getting your facts. So when I'm saying that I plan to push a mix to the max, it's for the time frame my name was on the list to the last. But I'm forgiving the past. All of those who've given backs were just given a pass. I swear on everything I love, I care about everything I love, and that is a struggle. Beautiful, 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 beautiful struggle. It's the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
And that's one of my favorites too, man. You been
No, man, it's you know, it's funny because you said that, you know, that you had to kind of go back and revisit it, and you were trying to say things and you weren't really able to get them out. But I listened to what you're saying, and I'm like, you getting it out there, you know, you're getting that, you're getting that point out there. And sometimes we're our own worst critic, you know, but sometimes it's good to be critical of yourself because you can take yourself to another plane. But you know, if you were ever under the impression that, you know, no one got your message or you weren't getting the message across, I have to disagree with you, because that's a great track right there.
Thank you. I mean, beautiful struggle. I would say I am, you know, I do appreciate this song. Shouts to my homegirl. Thank you, Marcy. Shouts to my homegirl, Sheena Murray, who sung the hook on that. She just celebrated a birthday this past week. She's from Florida. She's a dope artist. She came in, banged it out. She's a gorgeous, beautiful person inside and out. So that worked. And then this is something where the struggle, you know, as artists, you know the struggle. We all know the struggle. So it's very relatable.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, Mark, what's going on now? What projects do you have going on now? What is your focus right now?
Right now, my focus is I'm between seasons of my podcast.
Yes, yes, and you had a very, talk about what you just recently did with the Marvel situation.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
So this is this is a lot of things that's happening now. I started another, my homeboy Blitz and I are doing weekly breakdowns of these Marvel shows. It started with my Instagram live where we're breaking down WandaVision.
Okay.
So my black nerds, you know, I'm definitely one of you. So, you know, each week, you know, I started on my podcast. I'm like, let me do Instagram live because people need to be explained what's happening, all the sports, all the theories.
Right, right.
Started it weekly with my boy LR Blitzkrieg, and then we started our own imprint called I So Boom. So that's something that we're doing literally now. We had our first taping yesterday.
Okay.
So we're going to be covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But we're definitely able to offer a lot of guidance. We want to be able to, if you watch these shows and you need that context, you need that push. I'm definitely somebody to follow, and I'm definitely that nerd to help you give context.
I thought that was so cool. I was like, what's? Oh, that's crazy, but definitely, because there's so many different theories in those shows and so many different potential, twists and turns that if you're not 100% familiar with the characters and how they relate and how they're tied into each other, then you can get a little confused, and I thought that was so cool. So, but that's part of your podcast, which is the podcast is called what?
My podcast is called X Marks the Black Podcast. So we're in between seasons now. I had a successful first season, about 16 episodes, and I'm taking a little break now, and then I'll revisit in season 2 with more visuals. I didn't do any visuals before. Now I'll be doing video interviews and such. So that's something where I every week I took a major topic. Some were relevant topics, and some was just a random topic that I would dissect from and pretty much give you a breakdown from a Black nerd lens. Did a lot. I mean, I talked about the theaters, how they were closed because of Corona. A lot of streaming wars. I had an entire series called The Streaming Wars, kind of going into HBO Max and Netflix and digging deep. Not just surface level stuff.
Right.
Real nerdy, itty gritty to how our So if you really like behind the scenes stuff and you like Black culture being appreciated, then that's the podcast for you.
You made a quick mention of Corona. Was digging more into the podcast, I would say, like a result of not being able to get out to the clubs or not being able to do performances and trying to find another avenue to explore?
I mean, yes. I had a major epiphany. One of my friends was like, why don't you do a podcast? And it's been something that was floating around my mind. Hilarious. X Marks the Black Podcast, Marcy. Thank you. X Marks the Black Podcast. And my website, www.themarksman.com. You can click right there and find it. But yeah, when it came down to the epiphany, I was like, wait, a podcast is a show. So that sounds very simple, like duh. But that didn't hit me until a couple months before I did my podcast, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense because it's one of the reasons why I ended up doing this. I'm like, how do you have a chance to express your views, your creations, whatever it is, and then we forget sometimes that you can get to everyone. Without having to leave your home, you can get to everyone. And so I do want to expand on to getting people to perform, live and having setups where I can do that. I even have here, I have enough room where I'm at. So when things do get a little bit, better, we can actually have a band here and have a live performance from here in studio and get it out to people. I think it helps. You can never get, never too much connection. As long as it's the right kind of connection, I have a problem with it because sometimes, we reach out with the wrong intent or we reach out with the wrong information. But when it's good or when it's from a good place, I'm like, let's share it with the world.
Yeah. I want in on that.
Absolutely, man.
So he has me on the show.
Absolutely.
Bring me up there.
That's without question, brother. That's without question. I want to have, acts that are rich in content and acts that are rich in artistic.
Yeah.
And being artistic. And maybe one day I'll actually do something on my own show. Who knows? But I don't know if last week I had the guys from my old group on and we ended up speaking on here for 3 hours. 3 hours because the time just flew by, all the things that we were talking about. And it was such a great experience. But I was saying how sometimes in revisionist history, you see things one way and your partners see things, a totally different way. And it's something when you all kind of get together after like 20 years and talk about it. But so you got the podcast, you have your website. Any new music coming out? Any music that's been out? Let people know where they can hear your stuff.
Yeah, I have all of my mixtapes are posted on my Bandcamp page. So if you type in the marksman.bandcamp.com, you'll see my first mixtape in 2010 that we talked about. All those songs that you played, pretty much on those pages. My most recent mixtape is called No Disrespect, and that is the final mixtape that's on that page. And that's probably, to be honest with you, Frank, we were talking about, me being honest about how I felt about my music and progressing. This is the first complete project that I'm completely proud and confident about my voice and the way I was able to articulate my thoughts.
Okay.
I released that in 2019. I've been doing this for a minute. So it's taken me a while to even be complete. And I'm a perfectionist. I get my standards are different to the, but I hold myself to a higher standard for that reason. And this is one of this is definitely my most proud project from just me being MC.
Right.
So that's hip hop. I'm working on a new project now. I'll be recording next month, April. But aside that, just stay in tune for the next season 2 of X Marks the Black podcast, because I do on turning up the gas and really turning up the heat, just making sure that it reaches more people. So I'm gonna be on full blast in a couple months.
Absolutely. We look forward to it. Mark, also we've talked about this for a couple of years now, but we've never had a chance. I got some stuff for you. I got some tracks. We got to get together on that, see what happens.
Yes.
I would love to do that. I would love to see what we can come up with together.
I'm ready for that, bro.
All right, man. Well, Mark, I appreciate you taking the time out. I appreciate you coming on, sharing your thoughts, sharing your music and your vibe. I'm sure I'll post your information again because I'll do the replay, so it'll be in all the comments where they can find you. And man, much love, brother. I appreciate the time, and I hope that we get together and talk again real soon.
I do hope so, Frank. I mean, I definitely appreciate you having me. I hope this is not the last time. I'll definitely love to share.
Oh, it's not. No, it's not. We're gonna have you on next time. We're gonna have some live performances.
No doubt. I got you, bro. I got you.
All right, brother. Take care, Mark.
Peace. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was the Marksman. That brother is just he's a great dude, man. He's a great heart, great focus, great person, a champion of hip hop, a champion of poetry, a champion of passion, and it's been a great having him, and I hope we have him back soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is episode 14. This was Den City Tonight. Like I said, next week we are going to have G Mims coming on, and we're gonna see what that brings, and hopefully it'll bring some fun things. I appreciate you guys coming out. As always, thank you for the love, and I will see you next week.